The Earley Show will begin after a brief word from today's sponsor, Answering Legal. Visit answeringlegal.com to learn more about our 24/7 virtual receptionist team.
Answering Legal has been pivotal to allow our virtual law firm to thrive. Without them, we would not be able to handle the call volume that comes to our law firm. We needed a service that would allow us to be able to take those messages, yet still focus on working with our clients and be able to call them back. Answering Legal has been phenomenal on getting a great customer service relationship with people that are calling into the firm, taking messages, giving us those messages, and we can get back to them very shortly.
Earley Show is sponsored by our friends over at Answering Legal. We have a real treat today. Today we have Mike Morse, the Mike Morse Law Firm. Mike has built a law firm from scratch. Now he's up to 210 people. So as always, get your pencil sharp, and there's going to be plenty of teaching moments, plenty of writer-downers. I really wanted to get Mike on the show because he's a resilient guy. He's been through a lot, and I love that. He speaks my language of just persevering, and he's built up an impressive firm. He's done it the right way. So I'm really excited to get into it. So with that, Mike, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. So I always have guests come on who I have things in common with. John Morgan, Ali Awad, Jennifer Gore Cuthbert, Ryan McKean, Craig Goldenfarb. These are all personal injury attorney entrepreneurs who are scaling businesses, right? Not practices, but businesses. And I know you obviously speak that language very well. So a couple things we have in common. Again, we're both entrepreneurs. We're both girl dads. We both meditate from time to time. And we're just both, I think we have the DNA of entrepreneurs. So I'm just really excited to get into it with you. I know your story. I've read Fireproof. If anyone listening has not read Fireproof, buy it today, overnight it. It's an amazing book. It really shifted how I view my business. But like I said, Mike, I know your story. I've heard you speak. I've heard John Knockhazel speak. I'd love to hear, your upbringing, what it looked like, mom and dad. Just take us back if you could.
I should get the tissues ready. Grew up in a normal home here in Detroit, Michigan. Parents got divorced at 12, which was definitely rough on a 12-year-old. And then they kind of were going through multiple marriages, which made my adolescent years tough. I was bullied a lot in high school, moved to a new neighborhood. I was one of the only Jewish kids, and it was not great. Graduated high school and went to college really far away in Tucson, Arizona, to get away from life here. Had a wonderful 4 years there. Came back to Detroit for law school so I could practice law with my best friend, my dad, who was an injury lawyer here in the city. I went to every Saturday. We'd go down to his office. I would go to court with him. I would see him talk to his clients. I would play with the copy machines. I mean, being a lawyer was in my DNA from 5 years old, just going to the office and being in it. Sadly, my first year of law school, while I was in the middle of my final exams in May, my dad died of a massive heart attack at 49 years old. Thank you.
Terrible.
So that was, probably the worst and biggest fire that I've been through, debating whether or not I should go to continue law school. I had some doubts. They didn't last very long, to be quite honest, but I definitely thought, do I still want to be a lawyer without him? Obviously, the answer was yes. He had gotten me a job before he died at a big law firm, the biggest personal injury firm in Detroit at the time, because he wanted me to work for what he would call a real law firm, because he was a solo and he didn't consider himself a real law firm. So I went to a law firm. I don't even know how many lawyers they had, 20, 30 lawyers. It was a great environment. It was called Lowe Payton Miller. I learned a ton from these fantastic lawyers and staff. Did that for a summer. And then second year law school, third year law school, ended up working for one of my dad's friends, was there for a few years as a lawyer. I thought kicking ass, bringing in cases, settling cases, trying cases, really perfecting my craft in depositions. And then on September 21st, 1995, they literally just fired me on a Friday afternoon without warning, and locked the doors and kept my cases, and I had nothing. I was getting married the next year, and I called a friend from law school who was referring me some cases, and I said, can I share space with you? Can I come check out your stuff? And he's like, sure, come on over. I negotiated a small little office with a desk and a chair, and I used the receptionist for $1,000 a month, and I set up shop so I was fired on a Friday. My office was open on a Monday. I had business cards, phone line. I had a website being built, I think, at the time. I think websites were around in 1995. I'm not sure. And that's kind of how it started. It was just me for the first 10 years. I was just kind of renting staff, and then eventually I started hiring a few people, and I had 8 people in 2003. In 2006, I had about 15 people, and then I had a fire in my office building, and the thing burnt down. And my business coach at the time, Gino Wickman, said, you need a second in command. You can't take this where your energy wants to take it. You want to help so many people. You want to grow, but you can't do it alone. So I hired a COO at that point, John Knockhazel, in 2007, 8. I think 8. He was my 28th employee, I believe. And he really, not a non-lawyer, John's a non-lawyer, and he really, him and Gino taught me about business and metrics and data, and we took it from 28 people to 210 people. I think we were doing probably 5, 6, 7, 8 million a year. 3-4 years later, I'm getting hundreds of cases a month from the biggest referral source in my town. I'm not going to say his name. In the book, we call him Sid. Sid was referring me hundreds of cases. I was making millions of dollars. I was sending him millions of dollars a year. And then in 2011, he said, I'm not sending you any more cases. Another fire. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay. And I bet on myself, and I went on TV within a month to compete because I had 30 employees and I couldn't not help feed their families and my family. And, so we took a big risk and a big gamble because there was $35 million a year being spent in my market at that time. In 2011, it's probably way more than that now. And I figured out a way to have my messages break through the normal, boring law ads that are still rampant across this country. That's one of my missions, is to change all that. I think we're doing a pretty good job at that. Came up with some award-winning. We win lots of awards through National Trial Lawyers Association and other things about our awards and our marketing. We cut through the clutter, cut through the noise. We're now the biggest firm in our state, in our region, top 10 in the country, our size, our revenue. We're going to do, I think, about $200 million this year in settlements and verdicts. The year before my fire, it was $17 million. So that'll show you the trajectory in about 15 years of the growth. Yeah, that was a lot.
So there's a ton that went on before that in your life. I kind of, if you don't mind, just talking about your upbringing. Again, we have things in common. I've heard you say you were a class clown for a time. I was a class clown. In my family, there was discord as a kid. I think I was acting out. You talk about bullying. I was bullied. I had red hair. Just got knocked around a little bit. And I know that you were showing entrepreneurial, chops. I heard you talk about selling chipwiches, hawking chipwiches and making money from that. So did you ever have a paper route by chance or no?
Of course.
I knew it. Everybody who I'm telling you, I knew it. It's rhetorical.
That was hard.
That's hard work in Michigan. It's hard ass work.
It's a good, so it took me years and years of therapy to figure out what I'm about to share. So obviously in the moment, I didn't know what I'm about to share when I was 8 years old, schlepping newspapers up and down my street on my little bike. And I'm 82 pounds, if that, carrying these big things, selling gum out of my locker, selling chipwiches before I could drive on the mean streets of Detroit back in the 80s.
Wow.
My dad would drive me down there and we would be in front of his building, First National Building, and it was rough in the 80s in Detroit. Now it's fabulous. And I think what we came to was basically that I believed, my inner child believed, that if I made money, I was going to be safe. I was going to be protected. I saw examples of that, like some of the happier friends I had. Their parents were still married. They had a lot of money. They drove fancy cars. And I said, okay, my internal self said that must be the answer. Let's figure out how to make money. And from a young age, doing all those crazy things until I started waiting tables and bussing tables at age 14. I would ride my bike, ride my moped. I didn't need the money. My parents didn't say go work. We were middle class. My mom worked. My dad worked. Like, we had a decent sized house with a pool. And it's like, I didn't need the money, yet I thought I needed it to make safe. So everything I did was geared towards making money. My mom tells stories that when I waited tables, I used to cash her paychecks because I had so much money. At 15, 16, 17, I'd have thousands of dollars in ones around my bed.
Wow.
And metaphorically, I think I thought it was keeping me safe. And from a young age, I figured out how to make money. And it's never been hard for me to make money. From waiting tables, I was always the best waiter in the restaurant. If I made $200 a night, the next waiter made 80. I waited in college. I waited up until law school. I didn't need to. My dad was alive still. He was paying for things, but I just still needed to. So that's where my entrepreneurial mindset came from. I always was able to figure out how to sell. When you're a waiter, the more you sell, the more you make, to this day. So if a waiter's pushing a $200 bottle of wine, it ain't because the wine's that good. It's because they get a $30 or $40 tip off that.
Yeah.
And that's still true today. And so I learned it early on. When I became a lawyer, I used to get a lot of my cases from other lawyers, and I truthfully worked harder on their cases than my own cases. I gave the best customer service. I knew if that client wasn't happy, they were calling that referral source. I had to make them my best friend, and I did.
Yeah.
When I got that referral fee, unlike most lawyers who loathe having to turn over a third to that lawyer, I was excited, and I drove it there and I handed it to him. I said, thank you so much for that case. And it worked. And so more cases came and more cases came. And, when I started having to advertise, I just feel like I had a knack on how to do that. It was always straightforward. It was, a lot of my ads, if people want to go watch them on YouTube, it's the Mike Morse Law Firm on YouTube. And you'll see lots of self-deprecating humor. You'll see lots of me making fun of myself, my mom, my dog. There's not a ton of ads, typical, like, call me for an auto accident. I mean, of course, there's some of that, but it's, people know in my town what I do. I'm not going to stand there and just talk about that. I'm going to make them laugh. I'm going to make them cry. I'm going to make them think. And it's working. So we're getting thousands of new calls a month. We're the biggest in town by a wide margin, and we're not the biggest spender. So I know this stuff works. We now coach other law firms how to do this through our Fireproof coaching program. We're seeing it work in other markets. We connect with our community through backpack programs, dog adoption events. We just got a man out of prison who was serving a life conviction who didn't get a fair trial. So we exonerated a man, which was the best thing I've ever done. This is May of this year.
Wow.
So, all of these things I do not for cases, but I do for the love of my community. And of course it pays back in unbelievable ways, but you can't look at it. I was at a seminar recently and I was talking about the backpack program, and somebody, what's the ROI on it? I said, sir, the backpack program isn't for you. If you ask that question, right? And so I don't look at it that way. I just know when I do good, more good comes to me. And it's like a wonderful place to live and be. So I'm the happiest lawyer you'll talk to. I only work on things, Chris, that I love to do and that I'm great at. That's it. I don't take meetings I don't want to do. I don't go on podcasts I don't want to go on. I don't do lunches I don't want to do. I don't sit through a meeting I don't want to sit in. And so through our coaching program, it's like teaching people like this is possible. So many people are just miserable. They're running around. They're running their firms. They got major dockets. They don't know how to have a meeting. They don't know how to set up a leadership team. They don't know how to get cases. And it's not that hard. And so we love talking about it. We love coaching, teaching on it.
So I waited tables. My wife waited tables. It's just like a PhD in sales, time management, pressure, execution. I want my kids to wait tables, frankly. I just think it's like such integral an integral education. And one other thing I hope people picked up on, and I've started doing this, Mike would hand deliver referral fee checks to attorneys. That matters because not a lot of attorneys do that. I would recommend doing that when you can. It's just super effective showing up because what is that attorney going to do next? It's going to refer you another case, and that's going to compound. So if we could just go back, I know, it just what we have in common as well is there was stability but instability. When your dad passed, I've heard him say he was your best friend. You were on the precipice of graduating law school. Were you in final exams at that point?
First year. I was a first year law student.
Oh, first year. Very good. But you were going through exams. Okay. So, law school itself is just, but to have that, I can't comprehend it. How did the loss of your father change the course of your life?
I've thought about recently, like people say there's a silver lining in every bad thing that happens, right? Mm-hmm. And I've thought about that, and it's hard to think about with my dad. So, I think I don't know if I would have been in his shadow. I don't know anything, right? I don't know what our practice would have looked like. But I was forced to do it on my own. Mm-hmm. I was forced to develop resiliency and grit and tenacity. And I think some of that came from being threatened every day at school and bullied and all that. But this was like, holy shit, I'm really on my own.
Oh, yeah.
And for the first time at 21, 22. And so how did it change my life? I don't know how it didn't change my life. I think about him every day. It changed everything. I take care of myself, which is I guess a silver lining. I eat healthy. I'm 140 pounds. I work out every day. I go to my doctors 4 times a year to make sure that I don't die at 49 years old. I'm now 55, so I didn't. I'm past that. I don't worry about that anymore. But I from age 22 to 49, I certainly worried. I had 3 beautiful daughters, and I wanted to walk them down the aisle. My dad wasn't able to meet my wife. My dad wasn't able to meet my kids. So that all sucks, obviously. And I appreciate. So here's another silver lining. I feel like I'm in therapy again. I appreciate life more than the average guy.
Sure.
I have a buddy, Paul, who talks about no 0 days. I like that saying. I don't waste time. I don't waste days. I don't fight with people. I don't hold grudges. I enjoy my life. I travel a ton for fun, not for work. If I do go give a speech, I'm having fun. Phoenix next week, I have 5 speeches I'm giving, and I'm looking forward to all of them. I'm looking forward to teaching and, playing golf and hiking and really enjoying. So I don't, I've never been a workaholic. Somehow I built a beautiful law firm with being smart on time, right? I'm very efficient. I've never worked 12-hour days. I've never missed a recital. I make lunches every day. I still drive my 15-year-old to school every day. So life is different for me. And there's certain people, parents are still alive, parents are still married, they're in their 80s, and I have friends who, they have a different outlook on life, and they move in the world differently than I do. So that's a silver lining that I really enjoy every day of my life. I tell my kids that. I communicate with my kids more than my dad probably communicated with me, because back then, communication, you weren't really talking about your feelings as much as we talk about. I'm sure you talk about with your daughters more. that your parents did with you.
100%.
That's a silver lining. So, I mean, there's lots, but I appreciate the question.
No, man. So, we talk about fires, just these bombs. Let me ask you this, because I grew up, there were bombs. Currently, I'm by any stretch, by any definition, successful, right? 15-person law firm in Boston. I'm always waiting for the shoe to drop because I'm traumatized. I don't know how you feel inside, but given your level of success, do you ever feel like, is there any catastrophe thinking, right? Is there any, like, the shoe's going to drop? Like, I don't know. Does anything like, or are you at the point where you're past all that, that it's so built and robust that it's not like that?
It's a great question. I don't think I've ever been asked that. Yes, there's been most of my life since my dad died, even before that, I was always looking over my shoulder. I believe my flight or fight response is high at all times.
Me too.
I wear this Aura ring, and it tells me that my HRV, which measures fight or flight, is really low, and it's supposed to be high. So I believe internally, to this minute, to this day, I still am in a very high state of flight or fight. My day-to-day, I mean, my numbers are so low, even on days I meditate, sauna, workout, don't go to the office, whatever. So even on really serene, beautiful days, my fight or flight is up because my HRV levels are down. So but I don't I don't get scared. There's been a period of time where I was scared to pick up my phone. So many bad things were happening that I was afraid. What's the next, we call them bombs in our office. What's the next thing, the bad thing that's going to happen today? I don't do that anymore. Because I think part of it is I've had so many things happen and they all pass.
Yep.
When something bad happens, the cliche line, this too shall pass.
Yep.
This too shall pass has gotten me through some very dark days. And it works because, Chris, as you know, from all the bombs you've been through, everything passes. And so I've had those periods, but I've made them through.
Yep.
And I'm like, so then the next one, it's a little easier. And the next one, it's a little easier. And the next one, it's a little easier. So now when somebody says, all right, this person quit, we lost this case, this didn't go the way we wanted to go. Okay, next.
Yep.
It doesn't beat me up anymore. I don't spin out of control. I've never been a real big spinner out of control. I'll spin a little bit. I give myself a few hours and then I'm out.
Yep.
These days it's minutes because I know I have perspective.
Yeah.
My old age, I have perspective on all of the things that have happened. And guess what? I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still happy. I still have a great family, firm, friends. It's learning from these things. It's learning from these mistakes. It's learning from these bombs. I'm not going to bore you with cliches about learning from your mistakes, but in my world, that's everything. I mean, we won't allow the same mistake happen twice in my firm, in my personal life. I'm very, okay, this happened. How are we going to make this not happen again? What are we going to learn from this? How are we going to make the firm better? How am I going to make my life better? And it's a great way to live. I mean, you're conscious. The law firms that are just running from case to case to case, don't have a leadership team, don't have core values, don't have great meetings, etc. They're not living. They're running around like chickens with their heads cut off, not knowing what's in the bank account, not knowing if they're successful or not truly happy. And that's a high percentage of the lawyers that I meet. And I know exactly why. I can diagnose it in minutes because that was me. That was me for 15 years.
Yep.
I'm not saying they're bad people. I'm saying I did that for 15 years. The next 15 years, I treated my law firm like a business. I wrote this book to share it with everybody exactly how. Never planned on coaching. And the coaching, came out of necessity because I was getting calls from friends across the country saying, I need your help. Please come in and help us implement Fireproof in our law firm. We've done that for over 200 firms now, and the results are like scary
Awesome.
good.
I don't doubt it. Let me ask you this. So I have two sort of, so I love the resilience stuff because it speaks to me and everyone listening to this, right? Because no one listening to this has 210 people on the bus, right? I can guarantee that. So you had to, so Ryan McKean was on a couple weeks ago. He said something that really stuck with me. He talked about, oh, by the way, you going to his conference? It's next week in
I'm not,
Boston.
but Ryan's a Fireproof client.
Yeah, right.
And,
Right. He speaks really highly of you, Mike.
He's an amazing guy, good lawyer.
He's a discerning critic of these services, and he says the Fireproof service, that is the one. So that holds weight to me. He talks about resiliency muscle. So did you ever think about, just for lack of a better term, burning it down? Right, when you kept failing, punches in the face as you're growing your practice. Did you ever think about just, quitting, not doing it, but like going, like, just enough with this shit. I'm out of this. I'm done.
Never once.
Okay.
I had that one moment. Do I want to be a lawyer anymore?
Yeah.
But after that, it's like, never am I burning this down. Never, okay. I've enjoyed it, and I enjoy the fires. I consider myself one of the best problem solvers in the world because I've had so many. And my brain it's just really quick.
Sure.
If you brought to me a problem, I could help you solve it really quickly. And I'm really good at that. I actually, that's fun for me, is digging out of a problem and putting new processes in place, or how did this happen? But I never once said this isn't. I mean, I've had times where I said this isn't all that fun anymore.
Yeah.
But I said let's shut this down, because again, I have that. I at this point, obviously, the money is not a thing. I have enough money. If I wanted to retire, I could. But it's more about, like, now it's more of a game. It's helping as many people as I can help. It's getting the best results for the clients that I can get while keeping 210 people happy, which isn't always the easiest thing in the whole world. So I spend a lot of energy in staff. Before we got on this podcast, I'm giving a speech live to 210 people at 4:00 this afternoon, which I do every single quarter. I'm then taking half of them for happy hour, connecting with them in person. And so, like, I spend a lot of energy on culture and making sure my staff is happy and feels appreciated and loved, because so many lawyers forget to tell them thank you. So many lawyers forget to show them the love, me included. But I appreciate them so much that, this is a great day, and I want to give a good talk. I want to give a good hour presentation, and then go break bread and have a drink with some amazing lawyers and staff.
Well, that's awesome. And I feel like I call it this, the come up as you're, growing and scaling. It seems like with the adversity, you kept doubling down. You weren't capitulating and giving up. It was more like, you kept going in more, right? And like doubling down, I feel like, because you kept scaling it. So I think that's really instructive for our listeners, right? You can go through a lot, but if you have the nerve to keep going, you'll surpass almost everybody else, because most people give up. And when I talk about giving up, I don't mean literally like I'm going to burn my firm down, but I say to my wife, and oh my God, this is not working. This XYZ. She's like, stay the course. Stay the course. Keep doing it. And what happens? You get through that. This too shall pass. Because Mike, I don't know about you. I look at my child and I'm like, I got through that stuff. This is nothing, man. These are like first world problems.
Yeah. What came up when you were sharing that, Chris, is I've surrounded myself with good people.
Yeah.
And for anybody who's listening who wants to give up, right, or who just isn't having fun, or it's too hard, when I talk to those people, I ask them, tell me about your leadership team. I don't have one. All right, well, tell me who's at your firm. How often are you meeting with them? Oh, I see them every day. No, how often are you sitting in a room, have an agenda for an hour? And I take them through this question, and they're just, again, like I said earlier, they're just running around.
Yeah.
They're not focused. They're not thinking on their business. They're not working on their business. They're working in their business. And all those things work. All the cliches, all the books you've read, that stuff works. And so when people aren't happy, I think that I didn't go through that because I've had an executive / leadership team in place since 2007. These are people I can rely on. These are people I handpick. These are people who I delegate to. These are people I trust and respect and love. And that when I have an idea or I have a problem, they help figure it out. I'm not alone. So many lawyers are solos and they have 15 staff and they're on their own. So the weight of the world is on their shoulders. And I had 28 people. And I remember that was painful. And then I got an executive team. And after my first meeting with my coach, 50% of my stress and anxiety and grief went away. 50%. And I described that in the book. And it's changed everything. So since that time, I have not once thought about, throwing in the towel because I have a team. I don't need to throw in the towel. I mean, it's now a machine that I've delegated so much and so well that I've delegated myself into a spot where I just, like I said earlier, do the things I love to do and I'm great at. And that's a really happy space to be in.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you're an overnight success, 25, 30 years in the making, right? I mean, looking back, it's like, yeah, I'm here, but it's like, man, you had to go through a lot. So I have a coach. I'm actually have begun coaching other lawyers. I'm my first personal injury lawyer coaching client, because I like to geek out in the business of law. I like it more than lawyering. And so how did coaching change your game? Because when I started getting coaching, personally, it was like, I had 2 at one point. I was like, man, I'm off to the races. Was it 2007? Was Gino Wickman your first coach?
I'm still with him. I saw him last week.
Awesome. But that was 2007.
Years.
Okay.
What's that? Yeah.
Is that when you really got cooking with gas? Is that when things took off?
First meeting with Gino. I tell this story in the book, but I'll tell you real quick for those who you haven't read the book. I'm busy. My services are in need. Clients are happy, but I am hitting the ceiling. I cannot do any more work. And he says, bring your executive team. I'll see you Friday morning, 9 a.m. Click. I'm like, I don't have an executive team.
That's awesome.
So I looked around in my office and I literally, Chris, true story, I grabbed 3 people. I grabbed Mark, Jan, and Lori. And I said, come on, guys. I said, we're too busy. We can't shut down for the day. I'm like,
sure.
Come on.
Yeah.
So we met. And during this meeting, Gino pulled it out of me, my pain and anguish that I had not shared with them. Yep. These are my people who've been with me years, and I didn't share with them how much I was drowning. I was doing everything. Mm-hmm. I was the everything. I mean, I just fill in the blank. I did everything. One was a lawyer, one was a paralegal, one was a secretary that I grabbed. And at the end of the day, long story short, they all said, Lori said, I'll have the secretaries bring all their questions and concerns to me. And Jan, my paralegal, said, I'm going to have all the paralegals bring their questions and concerns to me. And Mark, my lawyer, my first lawyer that I ever hired, said, all the lawyers, maybe there was 5 of them, they're all going to come to me with problems and questions. They're never going to be coming into your door again. And I walked out of there like, I died and went to heaven. 50% of my stress went away in an 8-hour meeting, Chris. 8 hours.
That's big, man.
And I haven't looked back. So that was my first lesson in delegating, because I'm like the typical lawyer who thinks, I've been in rooms with lawyers, 30, 40, 50, 60 lawyer. I did a 150 lawyer presentation recently. I said, how many people in this room think you're the best at something in your practice that nobody could ever do better than you? Every hand went up. I had 5 things that nobody could do better than me. Try cases, talk to clients, negotiate with adjusters, right? Boy, was I wrong. And the lawyers who can't let go of that ego are doomed to mediocrity, in my opinion. I started hiring lawyers smarter than me, that I thought were better than me, secretaries, John Knockhazel, a non-lawyer, to run my law firm. What? Law firms don't do that, right? Mm-hmm. I broke the molds. I went outside the box, and it worked for me, and it's working for the firms we work with. And delegation is a superpower of mine. I teach it. I love it. And people who come to me and say I'm too busy, I take them through a delegate exercise, and it is mind-blowing to them. It frees up every single person I've ever worked with, so they can then do the things that they really love to do and are great at and want to do and move the firm forward. But until I delegated, I was stuck. I was never growing past 28, 30 people, ever, ever, ever. And now here I am at 210, and I'm told we're going to have 300 people by the end of next year. And so, and I don't meet and I'm not doing any hiring. I'm not doing any of that. I have a team of people who does it.
That's
HR
awesome.
team, the thing.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. So success leaves clues. So you talk about ego. That's something I just wrote down. I would encourage the audience, right? You are limited by the extent to which you can delegate. And the average attorney, Mike, I feel like doesn't know anything about delegation, to be totally honest with you. It's the guys and gals that embrace it. I just talked to Craig Goldenfarb in Florida 4 days ago about the psychology of delegation. There's a cognitive aspect to it. Letting go. You're a traction guy, right? Great business book. If you haven't read it, everyone should read Traction. You let go of the vine that day. It sounds like you let your ego fall to the side. You're not irreplaceable. There's other people that can do the work that Mike can do, and then it sounds like you're off to the races. And I'm telling you, these lawyers, just the ego, especially in the legal profession. Lawyers are so egocentric. Get out of your own way. That's what I did and started to scale. I'm interested when you hit TV. Was it 2011 you started on TV?
Correct.
Was it then? So was there a time? Did it just explode the results, or did you have to wait a year or whatever? How long?
It took. I tell a funny story. There is a funny story. Not I tell a funny story. I remember we're going on TV on a Monday, let's say. So the week before I said, did you guys get extra phone lines? And they're like, yeah. I said, well, how many extra? 10 extra phone lines to handle the volume, the influx. So 8:42, our first ad ran. We had 30 ads that day. And I stood at the front desk and I'm waiting for the phones to ring. We have extra staff there. And the ad ran and I got some messages, but the phones didn't ring.
Yeah.
The whole day they didn't ring. The next day they didn't ring. The next day, maybe I got a call.
Oh, man.
It takes some time and you have to weather the storm. And I don't remember exactly how many months until it started ringing. But we're now at a point, 12 years later, that it's pretty much ringing off the hook. And it's been great for us. And we started out with a very modest budget, all my money, all my savings at that point. I bet on myself and I bet on my law firm and I bet on the creative. And I tell in I think it's chapter 4 of the book about, that I figured out, my entrepreneurial spirit, for lack of a better word, told me that I could not put on the boring vanilla ads that every lawyer in my town had and every lawyer in the country had. I'd watch their ads and say, who the heck would call these guys? To this day, I watch those ads and say, why would anybody call these lawyers? And I started it different, and I did it different, and I showcased myself. What's unique about me? And then a couple of years into it, I connected with a genius creative director named Ross Lerner, who is now responsible for my last 10 years of ads, and they're amazing. I love them. A couple of them make me tear up every time I see them. And we do Super Bowl ads every year. We do a really high-end ad every year that just will blow you away. And they're different. And now he's working with, I think, 10 firms around the country, because after Fireproof, everybody started calling him. And every firm who uses him sees success. I have a friend in Vegas who doubled his intake after working with Ross. And this is not a pitch for Ross. I don't think he's taking on new clients right now. He is busy at all. I know he's not. But he's just amazing. So you just got to figure out your Cherry Garcia. What's special about you? And you don't have to be on TV to have showcases. It could be on TikTok. It could be on Instagram. It could be on inexpensive things. 95% of the Fireproof clients aren't on TV. So it's just finding your inner Cherry Garcia, which is a special, memorable flavor, over the vanilla, boring ads, and you will be able to break through the clutter, break through the noise. You have to figure anybody listening to this has got to figure that part out if they want true success.
You got to be different. That's another takeaway here, Mike, is, a lot of lawyers are doing the same stuff. Breaking away from the pack is kind of simple. You just lean into who you are. It seems like you're leaning into your authentic, your mom is in a lot of spots, right, with you? I mean, that's awesome. Who's not going to love that? I mean, who's doing that?
My clients tell me they hired me because my mom said I was a good guy. I said, that lady's not even my mom. What are you talking about? They like that one. Yeah, my mom's in a lot of my spots. She's great. She loves being in them. She's recognized in town more than I am. And again, those ads are on YouTube if anybody wants to see them.
Yeah, I've checked them out. I encourage everyone to do that. How many lawyers do you currently have today?
60.
I laugh because I just think it's fantastic. I know I can appreciate how hard it is to get there. I can envision that's a long slog. So tell me this. Sounds like the money's made, right? What juices you up? Like what gets you going right now? Like what is it that, gets you going?
So my firm has labeled me as a guy who's never satisfied. And that's a lot of entrepreneurs. I'm sure, Chris, you have some of that.
Yeah. All day, every day.
Yeah. So it's not, it's again, I said this, and this is not to be cocky or conceited because it could come off that way, but it's not about the money, right? Money aside, I still want the firm to be better every day in every way. If we're at 98%, why aren't we at 99%? If we're at, we have 4.8 reviews, stars on Google with 4,000 reviews. Why don't we have 5,000 reviews?
Yep.
If our average case is 30,000, why isn't it 100? How do we make it 140,000? It's just getting better. It's always continually improving. That lights me up. When I sit in these meetings and I see room for growth, room for improvement, problem solving, I dive right in, and that's constant. And we find things all the time. I mean, I'm just writing my talk tonight about different things I want to focus on and keeping the culture alive with 200 plus people. It's not easy. We're a remote organization. Some people are in the office. Most people are hybrid, working from home. How do you keep the clients satisfied? How do you make sure that the clients feel that connection? How do we make sure the culture stays alive? Because we used to be in person before COVID.
Yeah.
Now we're not. How are we going to stick around for another 30 years if we're not in the same building, all of us? That's not an easy answer right there. And I don't think anybody has the answer for that right now, but we're talking about it. We're thinking about it. We're engaging our staff in the conversations. And so all of these things, intelligent conversations, light me up. Seeing improvement, looking at our numbers and saying, oh, this number looks wonky. How do we improve this number? How do we improve this response rate? How do we, work on this? Like just continuously trying to get better, never resting on our laurels. All that lights me up.
You ever heard of this? I think it's a Japanese concept called Kaizen. It's this constant. I think it's constant innovation, but minor tweaks, like microscopic but daily improvements. That lights me up too. Just moving the dial, just like 0.26%, right? I get lit up by that. That's awesome to me. That's entrepreneurial. I geek out on that. There's two successful PI attorneys I look up to: Jennifer Gore Cuthbert, Ryan McKean. They said, and I alluded to this earlier, that your Fireproof product is superior. How does that make you feel?
Great. Jennifer was one of my first Fireproof clients. She's still with me. She's going to be in Phoenix with me all next week. She's doubled her firm. She had never been on a stage talking before she met me. She is a superstar. She runs a great shop. She's a sponge. We were on a podcast like this. She texted me in the chat. It was a live podcast. It was a live, whatever you call it, webinar. Okay. And she texted me. She says, "You're my next coach." I'm like, haha, I'm not a coach. I've never coached anybody really. Right. And she was relentless. And I was on she tells the story. I don't remember it, but she says we were on a call within an hour after that podcast webinar, and I was giving her advice, and we're great friends. I love seeing her success. She's amazing. She's crushing it. She's an amazing lawyer. If you need anybody in Atlanta, in the whole state of Georgia, call her. If you need a great speaker for your event, call her.
No question.
She's a dynamo, and she takes what we say and implements it. Let's say you have 100 people listening to this. A low percentage are going to implement.
I know.
She implements all of it, and that's why she's successful. She wants to be like us, and she is on her way. And she listens, she tries, she's a constant learner, which everybody should be a constant learner. She reads a lot, she watches a lot of these types of shows. And you asked me a question earlier, and I wanted to say, like, what do I love about coaching? But people who write books, people who coach, people who speak at seminars improve their craft. They hone their craft. Every time I give a talk on something, I dive in and look at the research, the data, look for new ideas. I get better. So one reason we did that, one reason we wrote the book was to get better. We haven't made any money. We don't, we donate all the money we make to backpacks and dogs and things like that. It's not about money. It's about getting better, connecting with the community, giving back, all of those things. So I encourage everybody to talk, write a book, write a blog, do a podcast, get those creative juices flowing, because you do get better. I'm sure, Chris, you see that in your practice, that you're a better lawyer, better leader, better manager by teaching and coaching and doing this podcast.
100%. So, and also I mentioned Ryan McKeen, he speaks very highly of it. He's having a, like I said, conference next week. How does that make you feel? A guy like him is just off to the races, and he speaks really highly of you, Mike.
It's flattering. Again, we wrote the book, maybe a little bored, maybe a little wanting to give it back, maybe like looking for a project. We never thought it was going to be this thing. Awesome. The fact that Ryan and Jennifer and, hundreds of others have gotten a lot out of it is, just flattering. We had no idea. You put a book out there, most books don't do so well. Most books don't sell. And so the fact that I think there's almost 400 5-star reviews. I'd ask you to give one on Amazon. I don't ask enough, but you got to ask if you want. I'm proud. It's a legacy piece. I spoke, quick story, Chris, I don't know how much time we have left, but I was asked by the publisher, what's going to make this book successful in your brain? And I said, if every law student had to read it before they got out of law school.
Nice. I love it.
And last week, I spoke to my law school, brought them 100 copies, and gave a nice 45-minute presentation on, not on the book, but on what I wished I learned in law school. And I got a lot of really great a lot of feedback. I put it on my 855 Mike Wins Instagram account, if anybody's curious about that, or Facebook as well, 855 Mike Wins Facebook. And you could see we broke it into 10. I broke it into 10 tips for law students, and it's tens of thousands of views on some of these things. And when you slow down and think, like I thought, okay, it'd be easy to talk about Fireproof.
Yeah.
But I sat down. Gino calls it taking Starbucks time, and I went and I sat down. And I said, 30 years ago, what do I really wish Chris would have come in and told me in law school? And people don't slow down and think about that. But if you think about your last, decade or two, all of this stuff would have really helped us.
100%, man.
So if people read the book, if people have we didn't have podcasts. Hell, we didn't have laptops when I went to law school. But I want to give them a leg up. I want to help them avoid some of the struggles that we've had. And some kids will take it and some kids won't. But it's great. And being able to help people like Ryan and Jennifer advance their practices faster than I was able to.
Yeah.
It just makes me happy.
Yeah, that's meaningful work. I'm going to talk to my law school's having a career forum night tonight, and I've done it before. The law students come up to you, and I did this last year. I'm kind of just talking about mindset stuff, not being cheesy and, talking down, to them, but just keep your head straight, be different. Don't be afraid to stand out of the pack, right? That's my lesson to law students. Cherry Garcia, right? Just be a little bit different, mix it up. Don't be a miserable lawyer. Work against that. There's so much innovation in the field. And I think what you're doing is awesome. And it's a shame that we didn't learn any of this in law school, nothing. Right. It's totally self-taught. So you mentioned conferences. I know, and I've seen you at Miami NTL. I'm going there in January. I really geek out on conferences. I love conferences. My wife doesn't let me going, but she knows that when I come back, I'm a better, I'm a stronger business owner. If you go to one conference each year, except for your own, you have your own conference, right? Fireproof. Besides Fireproof, what would be a conference you wouldn't want to miss if you could just go to one?
I think there's great conferences. National trial lawyers have great conferences. AAJ, American
Yeah.
Association for Justice, has great conferences. I mean, there's something for everybody at that conference. I am partial to national trial lawyers. I think they do a great job. They have one in Miami. We have one in November called Business of Law, which is not around trying cases and how to do better depositions, which most are. This is about how to run a better business.
Mm.
It's Business of Law. I actually helped with the idea, and I curate the days with the leaders there. So that's near and dear to me. I don't own it. I don't make any money from it, but I like to help and donate my time because it's just a fantastic organization. So, I'll see you down in Miami end of January, I think it is this year, beginning of February. National Trial Lawyers Miami Conference. It's a great time. Learn a bunch. Come say hi to me. I look forward to meeting you in person there, Chris.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Let me ask you this. We're wrapping up. A couple other questions. What's your greatest success in life so far?
My kids.
Awesome. Me too.
My kids are happy and doing great and able to make decisions on their own without needing me every second. And I think they're productive members of society.
So I have an 11-year-old boy, 8-year-old daughter. Any advice on raising a teenage daughter? Because I'm scared.
Well, I have a 15-year-old at home.
Okay.
Who I don't want to be, there's a lot of times I'm alone, even though she's in the room, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
These phones are challenging.
Yeah.
Patience, knowing that they're teenagers, and just showing them lots of love. And my thing, I've never been asked this either, but I'm there even if they're not wanting to talk to me. Like last night, I have actually picture. I took a picture to send to my other daughters. It's my daughter on her phone in front of the fire with my dog on her lap, and me would love a conversation with her, but just being in the room with her, my energy's with her, my energy's in the room with her, that if she does want me, I'm here. I don't leave. I don't go out with friends. I don't go out at night. If I have my kids, I'm home.
Me too, man.
I've never missed a game. I've never missed a recital. I've never missed an opportunity to drive them anywhere, even if they don't want me. I'm still there. I'm still present.
They know dad's there. They know you're right there. That's what matters.
Yeah. Even if they tell you to piss off and they don't want you there, I'm
matter.
still there.
Yeah.
I take her, I'm taking her to a cold Michigan game Saturday night. I don't want to go, but she wants to go, so I'm taking her. So I get to spend time with her there, even though that's not my thing. I'm, and maybe this is stuff I learned from my dad. It's like, she's not going to be here at home forever. She's going to go to college and get a life. So I'm enjoying every moment with her. Even though it may not look it if you came in my house that we're really connecting, but I believe like you just got to have that patience and my 21 and 24-year-old probably went through the same thing, and they're my best buds. We talk multiple times a day. And so they get out of the teenage years, Chris. It's not forever. Hey, Chris, I got one for you. This too shall pass.
Yeah. Well, this is nothing compared to what you've been through, right? I mean, this is like walking the park. Maybe not. This is harder, actually.
Probably is.
I love it. So, just wrapping up, I think it's important. Lawyers need to understand you can go to recitals and make money. You can go to the softball game and still bring in cases, right? I see so many lawyers, Mike, and you know it, right? They're not getting it, right? And it's, as you said earlier, it's simple. I think it's complex, but it's very simple. Like just get stuff in order. Because I look at my business as a means to an end. I'm not a slave to my business. I manipulate the business structure, not the people, the structure to facilitate my lifestyle. And I put kick-ass people on the bus to make that happen. So they thrive and I thrive, and we're all, because I want them to be at their recitals to their kids, right? It works well. I think I know the answer to this, but I'm just interested to hear from you. What book has had the most profound impact on your life?
I will have to say, I read a lot of books. Like if I took you in the computer to my bedstand, there's probably 8 there right now. And every year I read a few that changed my life. But then the question you asked, probably Traction.
I thought you'd say that. Me too.
Because, Gino is my coach. He wrote a great book. His next book, Rocket Fuel, that John and I are featured in, was a great book. But I mean, I have, Good to Great was amazing. And listen, hell, I read Extreme Ownership this year that I thought was, changed my thinking on how I lead and how I manage. I wish I read that 20 years ago. So there's so many great books. My advice is just to keep finding them, keep reading them. Untethered Soul, not business book, spiritual book. Check that one out. Gino gave me that book recently, and that changes things. Beyond Reality, I just finished, was a great book by Victoria Song. I mean, I could go on and on books. I love books. I geek out on books. And I just keep learning because I don't know much. I take ideas from other people and I implement them, try them on. If it works, great. If it doesn't, I leave it.
I like the humility. Me and you both, man. There's so much we don't, we need to figure out. I love that. That's important. Staying like that. I love that you're like that. You're pretty easy. You're easy to find on the web. But how can people get in touch with you, and how can they inquire about Fireproof?
Mike at 855mikewins.com. Fireproofperformance.com is our website. We're on Instagram, LinkedIn. We do a couple of in-person seminars a year, April in Detroit, November in fabulous Phoenix. And then we have twice a month live calls. We have individual coaching. We do quarterlies to make sure that people are setting their goals and getting the traction that they need to run their practices. We have a bunch of great coaches. We don't have a ton of space right now, but we have a few spots open that if people are serious about it and want to take it to the next level, call, email, and I'll put you in touch with the right people. But it's, don't take my word for anything ever. Listen to the Ryan McKeans of the world and the Jennifer Gores of the world and, people like that.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Mike, thanks so much for being on the show. I really, truly appreciate this today.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, man.
This was fun.
Thank you. All right, that's it for this episode of The Earley Show. Be sure to check out more episodes of our show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and the Answering Legal YouTube channel. Have a great day, everybody.